EduTechGuys Radio, radio.edutechguys.com.
The opinions expressed on the site and its programs are those of participants and not intended to and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of any specific educational entity, sponsor, company, state, or government agency.
Hello and welcome to this episode of EduTechGuys Radio, brought to you by Southwest Arkansas Education Cooperative and Hope Public Schools, both located in Hope, Arkansas. I am one of your hosts, David Henderson.
Greg Moore.
And I'm Jeff Madlock.
Awesome. All right, we today we're going to kick some things off with some of the news happening in and around education and technology in education around the country. And then we're going to jump online with our special guest, Kevin Honeycutt. And later in the show, we're going to feature a piece of his music. He doesn't know that. He just found that out just now. Exactly. So we're going to feature a piece of his music, and hope you guys enjoy it. And thanks for tuning in and signing on and joining us this afternoon.
You gonna hit the news, or you want me to hit the? Am I hitting the news, or are you hitting the news?
I'll tell you what. Let me lead things off.
Because you're the one that did the first meeting with the State Department on the new testing stuff.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, yesterday morning, the Arkansas Department of Education Department of Student Assessment held a webinar to kind of give us an update as to what's going on with testing. Essentially, there's a commissioner's memo that came out. Those of you in Arkansas following along, that is Commissioner's Memo LS 16003, and it sets the testing calendar. Basically, what it says is that the window for computer testing is going to be April 11th through May 13th, and then the window for paper testing is April 18th through the 29th. And yes, there is going to be paper testing. That's going to be under very, very special circumstances. Basically, the gist of the meeting yesterday said that, for the most part, the schools in the state, we did online testing last year. Most of the schools did. I think they said it was 95 or 98% of the districts that did online testing. So no excuse not to do it this time around. And then those who didn't should be prepared, because the reason why they got a waiver last year was because they weren't ready. Theoretically, they got ready in the meantime, right? So what's interesting, what I thought was kind of interesting, was the list of things that are no longer going to be tested is pretty extensive. We will no longer have benchmark science in Arkansas, no park assessments at all throughout the year or otherwise. The ACT Aspire agreement also does away with the Explore test, the PLAN test, the plan as it's called, VUAA, and EOC exams. So we're not going to have Algebra 1, Geometry, or Biology end of course exams anymore. So it's a major change in the way we've been doing testing in the state.
Well, and so has it been decided? I'm sorry, I'm out of the loop. Yep. ACT or Park?
It is ACT.
Okay.
Or more specifically, it is the ACT Aspire.
Okay, so it's a whole new registration program then, isn't it?
It is. It's a whole new registration program. The State Department is actually working with Pearson. Now they're both owned by Pearson, so
wow.
There's that. But they're working with Pearson to figure out exactly what needs to be done in order to get the students and teachers into the system, what it's going to look like in terms of that testing environment, how we do sessions, all that kind of stuff that we went through last year. What's it going to look like this year?
Yeah, so we used all iPads and the TestNav app, so we'll still be able to use the TestNav app. So that shouldn't be an issue then, should it?
If they're still using that, I haven't looked at the test itself to see if that's the same environment or not.
When you find out we need to take a road trip, I'll get my baseball bat.
We'll take a look at that. The other big change, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but another big change for testing is this time when we test, it's by grade level. So all 9th graders, all 10th graders, all 4th graders, they're testing by grade. Subject area has nothing to do with it now. So that kind of got things a little shaken up yesterday during the webinar, because previously we had done Algebra 1 students together or geometry students. So now we are going to just test by grade level, and what's going to happen there is if you have students who are in ninth grade, they may or may not have taken a particular course, but they're going to be tested on it. So there was some concern about that, but we'll just have to kind of wait and see, how that develops. And then just FYI, they will be doing training for testing coordinators and technology coordinators in the fall, and then test administrators and kind of catching everybody else up. There will be continued training in the late fall or early spring. So that's what we got as far as testing goes.
That's cool. You're listening to radio.edutechguys.com. Make sure you want to check us out. You can also chat with us live. We've got Kevin Honeycutt coming up here in just a little bit. Going to chat with him, have a nice conversation. If you want to, check us out on the web, edutechguys.com. That's a great place to find all of our latest blog postings and all of our shows. So if you want to listen to the past 6 episodes, you can catch up on that site also. Back to the news. One thing that happened, we discussed on the last show last week was E-Rate, the state of Arkansas had sent us an email concerning the new and improved AppScan network. That's the new and improved AppScan network. And the fact that certain things were happening. Well, all of the state's E-Rate forms have been tied up with USAC and the FCC, or USAC, due to the fact that there's all this going on with some stuff with CenturyLink and some stuff with the way that the state is defining how we're going to receive bandwidth. One of the things are that we were told that we couldn't have 2 connections, that we would have to get it through AppScan. Just a little bird told me that a lot of the E-Rate consultants are saying that's not the way that the law reads with USAC, and so a lot of schools in the state of Arkansas use E-Rate consultants to handle their information. So we're all getting some really interesting information about that. So if you're listening, you're in the state of Arkansas, yes, the forms, the applications, 471s have been held up due to a CenturyLink problem. It's not a problem with CenturyLink. It's something to do with the way the bids went out. And it's been held up due to the way the ruling's going to go down, I believe. So that's just kind of got us hung up there. David, didn't you have something about the new superintendent of schools for Boston?
I was reading over some things and came across this article about Tommy Chang, who is the new superintendent of schools in Boston. And now he just started July 1st, and he's already come out with the first 100-day plan for school. So, start the job 2 weeks ago. He's up, raring to go, and he wants to have a curriculum audit done at the high schools. Also wants to develop a financial plan to stabilize the district, and wants to update technology at the high schools, among some other things. So that's looking very interesting. Some neat things happening there in the Boston school area. Last week, we spoke with Kimberly Wright, who works in the El Paso school district. And on this past Monday, the 2 largest El Paso ISD employee associations said that they are going to support a new measure that allows for local taxes to be used to help raise money for the district. The voters get to decide in early August whether they agree with it or not. But part of the new tax arrangement helps boost the salary schedules for teachers and staff in the El Paso ISD. Plus, they will get raises ranging from 2.5% to 3.5%, depending on their position and I don't know what other factors, but in fact, it may be positional. But they've got about 1,600 employees. So if this passes, that's a big boost for the El Paso ISD. So that's cool. And then the last thing that I've got that I want to throw out there.
Come on, you got to hurry up.
I'm getting there. I know everybody's chomping at the bit, wanting to get Kevin online. All right.
We're dropping listeners.
But now listen here. I'm doing the news. But I find this very interesting, and I did not tell Kevin that I was going to drop this on, so I don't know. He may or may not address this. But last week in Kansas, the State Board of Education approved a measure that allows non-certified instructors to teach in 6 special districts known as Innovation Coalition districts. frankly, Kansas has had a mass exodus of certified teachers heading for surrounding states and elsewhere.
Heck, every state's had a mass.
Yeah,
exodus.
well,
Teachers.
and the thing is that they're looking at using non-licensed instructors in the public classroom. Now, Arkansas has a program that's now called Apple. It used to be called NTL, non-traditional licensure. Now it's called Apple, which is the Arkansas Professional Pathway to Education Licensure. But essentially, it allows people who don't have a degree don't have a teacher certification to become certified in order to teach an education. So I'm kind of curious to see what if he would like to address that, how Kevin might see that happening. Kevin he serves on the local school board in the community that he lives. So this, although it doesn't necessarily have a direct impact, that may be something that we bring up. Then again, maybe not. Maybe he'll just skirt the whole thing.
Well, let's jump ahead to that right now. You're listening to radio.edutechguys.com. We're coming to you live from Hope, Arkansas. I want to thank the Hope Public Schools and the Southwest Arkansas Educational Co-op for letting us do this every Wednesday at 3 o'clock. We've been really lucky that every episode we've had, a superstar of the EdTech world on to us. I know that's a bunch of us nerds out there, but you know what? Nerds have heroes too. And but today we got, in our opinion, probably hopefully the best show we've done all season. Not to knock the other people that we've had on here, but
good job. Good job.
Yeah. But I'm going to let David introduce Kevin Honeycutt.
I have to say, I met Kevin probably about 10 years ago. My director, Phoebe Bailey, had seen him somewhere, I don't even know where, and asked him to come in to lead a group of educators as we were learning how to integrate technology and that type of thing. And he came in and did the keynote and did a couple breakout sessions, and instantly became friends. And I see him as absolutely one of my mentors. I wouldn't be doing this right here if he wouldn't, if he hadn't pushed to say, you guys should be doing something. You should be doing this.
At the moment I started following him on Facebook, that's why we're doing this. Welcome, Kevin. I hope you can hear us okay.
Kevin Honeycutt, that's an awful introduction, and I apologize, but just awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And so you bring those questions, because I want to talk to you as a school board member too, because, we're all living in this reality right now where we're trying our best to preserve great education against some pretty tough odds in some cases. We had a board meeting night before last, and so this is pretty fresh in my mind, all of these realities. And there's more realities on top of what you were talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. If it's good with you, it's okay to go ahead and start with that. I mean, I know it's not necessarily what we had planned to start with, but it is fresh on everybody's mind. It's fresh what's going on, especially in your neck of the woods. I mean, you're in Kansas.
Yeah, it bothers me. I'm going to talk sort of personally and professionally. I guess I'll mix them up. I always have. When you chip away at the profession, the years it took us to get certified, and the money we spent, and you make an assumption that anyone can walk off the street and teach, you basically undervalue what we do. And I think there are people who think that anyone can walk in and teach, and what they're going to find out. And I feel kind of sorry for some of the practitioners who try that, and I know some who've walked in to the teeth of the classroom, because if you don't know what you're doing, those kids will hand your butt to you pretty quick, and you'll get humbled. The problem is, in that process of people who aren't really prepared, is that kids are wasting educational opportunity while we experiment with this thing. What I want to say is, guys and girls, it would be nice if you trusted those of us who chose to get a degree. You trust your doctor. You don't bring in a mechanic and say, hey, you worked for Midas, you could probably do my open heart surgery.
Right.
So why would you treat our profession that way? And I think it's, again, this chipping away at and undervaluing this thing that we do. So I'm really passionate about that, because I don't know a whole lot of lazy teachers. I know tired teachers. I know overworked teachers. I think that sometimes these people who seem to be against us, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that ping, and I thought Red
that was me,
October.
sorry.
Is Red October on the
Yeah, that's right.
oscilloscope?
One ping only.
Just- I think what we got to do is stand up, and I don't mean get ugly, but I think we have to tell our story better. We have to make sure people understand that we're professionals and that it took a long time to get to be as good as we are. I'm not against helping people who want to come to the profession in oblique ways. I'd love to help them. I just don't want there to be a core group of people out there that are selling to the public that anybody can walk into a classroom and be an effective instructor. I think that's dishonest.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. I always say you don't get your grade year back. You only get to the third grade one time. And if we
Right.
start bringing in people that really don't understand what we do as teachers in education, we're going to waste a whole lot of kids' time.
Now, I'll be the first person to tell you that college did not prepare me for the classroom 100%. 70% of what I did in the classroom, I learned on the spot because most colleges are 10 years behind the curve. But that 30% they did teach me was invaluable as I made my way down those uncharted waters. And if I'd have walked off the street with none of that preparation and all the passion in the world, I think I would have gotten killed. So again, I really think it's important to value the teachers we have, the commitments they've made. And when you're looking for ways to save money, if you're looking to dump teachers, I don't think you're looking very hard.
Right. So that's a big deal. It's been a big deal here in Arkansas for some time. And I think what's interesting is that I love to have other people in from outside. I was a band director for 15 years. So, when I came out, I was green. I could play an instrument, and I could play lots of instruments and that kind of stuff. But the first time you stand in front of kids, you go, now, what did my high school chemistry teacher do to make everyone be quiet? Or, what was that deal?
Yeah.
I don't think they have that experience and know how to hone that task.
If you're going to create a pathway for people to come in off the street and bring expertise, then create a pathway. But don't replace, the classroom teacher with that apparatus. I think if you want to create a career in tech ed course where people from professions come in, that's fine. That's fine. They work daily in a factory, and they have the most fresh data on what it's like to be in an industry. But to try to wholesale, I don't want to try to wholesale replace this profession because I believe we know what we're doing, and everyone in the world has an opinion, and so many of them get to have their opinion while we have to do what they say.
Right.
I think what we need is more power. I think we need to seize the reins of this profession and say we know what we're doing. We're not asking anymore because when we asked, we got some bad answers. So here's what we're going to do. And one thing we can do is shine a light on the things that are working. I think there's too much light shined on the things that are perceived as not working. We've got to talk louder. We've got to live out loud in this profession, or we're going to die quietly.
That's okay. It's an honorable death. So tell us.
Yeah, that was great. That was.
Thank you. You know me.
Hey, yeah.
Hey, so let's jump into it. I got to tell you, yesterday I got my stuff from Jamstick. I just wanted to tell you, I wouldn't have known about Jamstick if I hadn't, been following you. But they sent me a ton of promotional stuff and a T-shirt and stickers, and so, pretty excited about it.
And I have made so much better peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
With the Jamstick.
Yes,
Yes,
exactly.
with the jams.
Shut up, Greg. You're out. So, Podstock this last week. Last week? Yeah.
Last week. Yep. Just
So
wrapped it up.
I caught some of the jam sessions. So how was it? Is it exciting as it looked like it was?
Yeah, it's an amazing conference. This is my baby because I had this idea that if we had a conference and invited the Jedis, the people we meet out in the field that we think are amazing, all to one conference, what would that be like? And that's what Podstock is. It's the other believers, it's the other zealots, the people who typically get beat up daily for their innovative ideas. Giving them 3 days to hang out with other Jedis and just re-believe is powerful. The kind of things you see there, the kind of friendships, these lifelong friendships that happen. These sessions are great. They're wonderful. It's those side conversations. The best conferences are like that. It's the hallway conversations that are the meat of the matter. And the crazies who come and realize maybe I'm not so crazy, or maybe there are more of me than I thought there were. Maybe I'm okay. Because if you go back and believe for a year, when you're leading kids and you're taking them in the right direction, it's important that we help sustain you. So that's kind of what that's all about. And it was as good as any conference we've ever done before. I think the pre-conference maker event was off the hook, just amazing. People came in with creativity, and Ginger Lumen sort of ran that whole thing, and she's amazing at doing these things. It was just amazing. The energy was great. And that led right into the conference, which, we do these evening music events. Tweetwood Mac was there opening night,
That's awesome.
and Tweetwood's starting to do more gigs. It's kind of amazing as we go out there. We did
That's
the
awesome.
Hard Rock Cafe in Philadelphia at ISTE. Oh my gosh, we're starting to get legit. It's a little bit scary.
Yes.
We have a set list we could actually play, and we still get people on stage to do karaoke. We still want to confirm and make sure nerds have their rock star moment they deserve, and all those things happen there, of course. And it's just a fun culmination of a year's worth of meeting people, getting them all home again to the mothership.
Well, and one of the things that it blows me away, because I know this may come as a shock to some folks, but I tend to be very introverted and in my shell, and I don't mind going and hanging it out, but don't drag me into things. And Kevin he will drag you into things. And so I mean, it was like I can't remember where we were. It may have been something in Hot Springs, maybe, or something. I can't remember. Anyway, we're at some conference, and you had just gotten some new gadget that you were playing around with, that I'm sure you attached to some other non-gadget type piece of equipment, Tradigital, as you call it, traditional and digital mixed together. And I just remember you were like, hey, I know you come up here on stage, and I'm up there tapping on the drums on my iPad. You're jamming with the guitar. Somebody else was playing something else on an iPod, I think, at that point. I don't know. But all of that to say that what I think you guys do in terms of that, grabbing people, like you said, giving nerds a chance to kind of rock out, it's awesome. Just because, I mean, really, if you know Kevin, you don't get a choice. You really don't. You're going to come up here and you're going to do this, and you're going to make a fool of yourself, and so what? You're going to have fun doing it. It's so cool. It is so cool.
You say I dragged you, but you had roller skates on.
Okay, all right. I'll give you that.
Most people want to. I think that what you're doing is saying, guys, we got a role model that will take a chance. If we don't do that, we're dead. We've got to do that in front of our kids too. Admit we don't know everything and have fun learning anyway. That's really the secret sauce behind these things. These things I do aren't accidents. They're sort of soft ways to approach something that's a bit hard for people. Trying something they haven't tried before. That's hard. So if you make it fun, and on the record there's a picture of it happening, you can't go back from that. You pretty much are confirmed. Once we have the picture,
you
signed a contract, baby.
That's right. There it is.
It's very sneaky, but it's my way. My Trojan horse way of getting change to happen is sneaking in under the radar, rather than pointing at you and saying you're wrong.
Right.
We just kind of have fun and talk about what right might look like.
Well, and I think it also goes really well with your hook 'em and cook 'em philosophy. I mean, it really does. You find something that I don't. You have an uncanny way of reading an audience, and I've been to multiple things that you've done now, and you really do. You have an uncanny way of reading an audience and finding that kind of underlying, how can I get in and hook them, and then by the end we're cooked. We're drinking the Kevin Kool-Aid, and we are ready to launch off and do what we want to do and get all excited, and it's fun to be a part of. It's very interesting to watch, but it's.
Don't you think the best teachers do that every day?
Yeah, absolutely.
So to me, I think as a speaker, you got to allow yourself to be the teacher you used to be, and paint a picture that's worth becoming a part of, instead of giving a kid a list of things they're supposed to memorize. I think most great teachers would be great presenters, because they make learning irresistible, or they try to,
Right.
So is that the response you get from a lot of people that do that? That, hey, I went back and I put on a show every day, and I let the kids be part of that show. Let them be who's trapped inside. Is that kind of the feedback you're getting from your workshops?
That's
your
what I
presentation?
want to get. It takes a while for people to give themselves permission. If you watch Spinal Tap, it takes a while for people to know that their amp goes to 11. Most people live at 7, and they don't even get it to 10. I don't know why they don't give themselves permission to be fully themselves. I think to be vulnerable in front of a group is the most powerful place to be. I think to be an expert is dangerous, and these days especially, because expertise, man, the freshness date for expertise is gone 24 hours. Try to write a book about Web 2.0. By the time it's printed, it's obsolete.
Right.
So if you're setting everything up on expertise, I think it's a losing battle. If you set up everything on vulnerability, come learn with me, and that you're allowed to fail. In fact, we want to fail so we can autopsy failure. I think that's the place where I'd rather live. And now, not everyone likes this. There's a cult of expertise out there that finds me wanting, that I'm not up there telling them exactly how it should be because that's what they do. But they're killing people with this.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
my favorite line from the movie A River Runs Through It, he's talking about his father with regard to fishing. And he says, "My father was of the opinion that any man that didn't know how to properly catch a trout should ever be allowed to disgrace a trout by catching one." Do you hear the arrogance in there?
Yes.
And I think there are people who say the only people that should be allowed to use an iPad are the ones who have gone through the sanctioned training and do it
Yes.
exactly like Apple said you have to do it. I resent the straitjacket. I don't think it makes room for creative people who come to these things from different angles and do it every bit as well, just not by the rules. I think the rules are suspect these days. They change daily. I think the only thing left is how do you learn best and what can we do with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's funny. The thing that I would love to do with you is a Prairie Home Companion type show where that's the conference piece, is that it's broadcasting live, but the show is the whole show. Tweetwood Mac's there. You're bringing people up doing the whole thing, and we do the whole thing with 2 devices. So the teacher can understand, hey, guess what? You can do the same thing in your classroom with an Android or a Google Chromebook or an iPad.
Right. And we on purpose, we break things on purpose. I used to do this with my high school students. I would unplug the web every now and then just because don't use anything as a crutch. Everything should be a tool. So what if the web goes down? You didn't have a plan? What if suddenly the app doesn't work because for some reason they went bankrupt and there's no support? That was the only plan you had? I want to think more like MacGyver. So what you're saying there, I don't just want to do that. I also want someone messing with things so that we have to improvise constantly, because I think that's the new way to think. The person that can improvise based on the new tools that were invented and the ones that went away because Google decided to discontinue without telling any of us. Right. And suddenly that button's gone, and you were going to tell 300 people how to do that today. We better learn how to unclench our sphincters and kind of relax a little bit and role model that for kids. I think when we get uptight, they see that and they start to get uptight, and there's no reason why they should get uptight. I think it's okay that we be a bit like MASH doctors, inventing new surgery in the time of need. There's all this need and opportunity, and we're still using one scalpel. Come on, people, we can do better than this. There are new instruments invented every day. And I think, as a leader within the group, you want to anoint a certain amount of people within that group, the ones who are just always looking. I want to give them superpowers so they can go bring to us what they just found with that one tweet, because something was invented last night that we absolutely need. For instance, if then. Do you guys use if then?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This,
Oh,
that,
yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Okay, I think we need to have an if-then conference, because if-then, is primary computer language, right? If this, then that. It's gate language, from zeros and ones. But I also love the idea that you can make your life work for you. If an email comes from this person, then it triggers this on my calendar.
Sure.
I could automate my life and stop working with minutia. I think if-then is life software. What else is like that? And how can we start to use that so we stop doing, first and second level tech support, and we can get to what we really want to do and need to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I hear what I wish teachers were put in that place every day where, okay, this doesn't work. I've got to find another route to it, so that in their bag of tricks, no matter what happens every day, hey, that's okay, kids. I got 6 other ways to get that apple out of that tree. Don't worry about it. We're gonna get through. And the kids learn from that. That's the big thing.
Well, and not only that, but what if I don't have those 6 other tricks in my bag. It doesn't matter. Hey, kids, this is what I had planned. This didn't work. You help me. How do you think we should approach this? I've got the content knowledge. So that's covered. I know what it is that I need you to learn or want you to learn, but the students themselves could help with the how do we learn? What are we going to use to learn?
So when are we bringing the kids to the conferences? That's what I want to know. When are the kids coming to the conferences?
And this is what the maker event's all about. When Ginger Lumen does a STEAM maker, students and their teachers come. And the teachers are not allowed to be the experts. They are not allowed. I think you need to manufacture that. I don't know how can we do it together. The danger in teaching is you want to be codependent. You don't mean to, but you got into it to be a savior. They raise their hand and you come over and solve their problem and it feels good. We gotta be okay with saying, I wish I knew how to do that. What would you do? And that feel just as good as solving their problem. Because in my opinion, when you solve their problem, you unwrap their Christmas presents for them. Right. These are their presents to unwrap. And so I think sometimes we have to pretend we don't know so they can show us a solution we never even thought of. Mm-hmm. Maker forces that issue. And the way Ginger Lumen does it, she really puts the teachers on notice and says, you're not leading. You're asking good questions and you're finding them amazing when they come up with solutions. And people sometimes have a hard time with that. And she's strong enough to say, we're doing this because she doesn't care. And the result is always amazing. So I'm loving that whole maker environment. And I love, guys, teachers get nervous because they don't understand the device. I think we're perfectly parked. If we did understand the device, we should pretend we don't. So since you don't understand, you're cast perfectly in the role of co-learner with the kid.
Sure. Yeah, so, you're already ahead of the game.
Right. So this is, again, a fun time to be alive if you just relax and get over the idea that you have to know everything, because that's already over. Google kicked your butt 20 years ago. It's been over for a while. The sad part is you're still mourning the loss of something that died 20 years ago. Shake it off.
Yes. Yeah, I had a request for Office and Word and Excel yesterday. So it's a lot. What? So I'm going to change the tempo here a little bit. Okay. Students as entrepreneurs. I know that's one of your passions, or you have several. I love going to your website because I would probably stay on your website for like 5 days just trying to get through everything. And then you get it, and it's like I love following the rabbit hole because once I jump into one, man, I'm going. It's like, okay, well, let's see where this thing's going to take us. But students as entrepreneurs, that's something David and Greg and I have been talking about at lunch a lot. Is giving our students the opportunity to create something and share it, not necessarily for a profit, but to create something and share it, give it away. Yeah, like your son, it's open world project.
Right.
Wow. He's an entrepreneur at the highest level.
Yeah, he's a social entrepreneur, and there's such a nice a range of different results you can get from. Yes, maybe it's good to teach inner city kids in Flint, Michigan, how to become self-employed entrepreneurs. That's a benevolent act. Maybe in another community, social entrepreneurialism and teaching kids to make the world better, that's a nice thing. In another community, and maybe these are all the same community, it's okay to teach kids how to build their brand value. So once they decide what they want to do, they have something other than being caught flat-footed beginning to build a brand. And I maintain that kids are building brand whether they know it or not, but they're either hurting their opportunities, limiting them, or they're growing them. And I don't think anyone's living in this space and tutoring them and teaching them how these days. But the web is so democratic. Any of you got this show going on, and it's gaining followers, right?
Right.
It came from nowhere. What is that room there? This looks like you spent a lot of money on the studio. What room is that? Is that a
the magazine room at the high school library.
It's the magazine room in the Hope High School that we were able to procure just moments before the show.
Darn it, we thought we could get away with a radio program, but no.
It's radio. Nobody else can see this, but Kevin sees it and calls it out to the front.
I think it's awesome. I think you should take a snapshot of that because it's just a part and parcel of this idea, this notion that anyone can start with nothing and grow their influence, grow what they're doing. You're doing it right now, so are the kids doing the same thing? And in doing that, are they building new viability for the TV show they want someday, or the whatever, building positive reputation that can be leveraged at the end of the day, for good, for whatever. So I love this idea of teaching kids that they're worth something right now. They can build something the world needs. Angela Myers does a great job of this, teaching people that they're brilliant. They just have to believe that you are worth something right now. I think that comes to kids too late sometimes, that message. They've already made some mistakes that limit their options before they ever realize they had great options. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny to me, all of this seems to tie together, really, as weird as it may sound, throughout a person's lifetime, in a weird sort of way, especially if they become a teacher. Because here's where I'm going with this. And by all means, you can throw wads of paper at me or whatever if you need to. But my thinking is this, that, when we are in school and we have this wide open, the whole canvas is in front of us and we can do whatever we want. And we have all these options, like you say. And then we start to exercise some of those options. And then we have some teachers who embrace that and they tell us, yeah, run with the options. That is awesome, phenomenal. Go with it. Let me see what you can do. But then we also have some teachers who, they cut that option off. They're like, no, that's not how I want you to do that. That's not how I want you to do that. Or one of the things that I absolutely hated in school, and part of the reason why I think I kind of stayed in the shell for so long, was because anytime I was wrong, I was shamed, right? Or felt that way anyway. Right. Maybe I wasn't. Maybe that's, embellishing through those foggy glasses we have when we're looking backwards. But so that then carries to, say, adulthood. And now I am a teacher, right, in front of a classroom, and I am the appointed expert, like we were talking about before. And so now I can't break out of my own shell. I won't crank that volume up to 10 or even 7.1, because if I mess up, then I'm wrong. And basically I shun, I shame myself. So there's no way I'm going to open myself up to that, to a bunch of students that I'm supposed to be the expert.
Right. So if your perceived value comes from being right, that's one model. Mm-hmm. If your perceived value comes from working with kids to find right, that's another. And I think that's what you just described. If I'm wrong, I'm going to be shamed. Then No Child Left Behind comes along with high-stakes testing, right answers to simple questions, and shame you further by putting you in the newspaper, no less. Right. It's a medieval thing, sort of. We're living in an environment, I like to call it dancing in a straitjacket. We're all in straitjackets and asked to dance. There is maneuvering room in there, right? But the best teachers are ripping the seams, and the best administrators are backing those people, because at the end of the day, if we create a whole bunch of... Am I back with you?
Yeah, you're back. Sorry about that.
It's okay. If you create a bunch of kids who are little Googles or trying to be Googles because they've memorized a bunch of facts that become hazy as time goes by, they cannot compete with the real Google. If we don't teach them skill sets for leveraging the fact that we have instant available knowledge, facts, so that we can begin to build wisdom on those facts, then we're wasting a whole lot of the resource from all of this. I like to say the web and technology prepares a buffet of learning choices, and for the most part, we're eating the napkins.
Yes, exactly.
Sorry, we lost our video. There you are.
There you are.
We can hear you, though.
Yes. Yeah, we can still hear you. Yeah, and I love that. I absolutely love that analogy. I've heard you use that before, and that is exactly right. Like you said, stepping up, here we have this whole buffet of things in front of us, and we're, like you said, we're eating the napkins,
Well, I was talking to a friend of mine who's an author, and she's been a successful author, and she writes books on how to use the web and Google tools. And we had this very real conversation at ISTE this year. And she said, I had to stop writing books because they were stale when they were launched, that this is moving faster than that. So I think in some ways, school can be that same model, that we're teaching content that's already obsolete by the time we make it into a lesson plan. So if we can't flow better, if we can't stay somehow synchronized with the outside world and real reality. So to me, the only way you can do that cheaply is to go ahead and anoint the crazies on your faculty who do that for free, who just can't stop doing it. Mm-hmm. Stop blaming them and give them a badge, because faculties, most good school innovation dies of domestic violence. Right? So if you don't tell the faculty I have permission, I don't have permission, even if you told me, I'll be attacked. So we got to create these zones, right? These Google's one day a week, or whatever you want to call these zones, where we are allowed to suspend the rules and try new things, or the world's going to keep going faster. Schools move at glacial speed when it comes to change. And this big difference between where we are and where the world is, it gets big enough, the whole world is going to go around us. Mm-hmm. In some cases, they already are. So if we don't give up a little of the hubris, and say this is the new reality, and some people have to be brave enough to step outside the rules, even though they know they're going to get shot. That's hard. And everyone can't do that. It may be that, David, most of your day you do what they tell you, but 1 hour a day you have begged, borrowed, and stole to create a class where you can try out these new conditions. And then once you start doing great things, you better get the news media in there. You better get the community in there, so they start saying, why doesn't this happen in other classes? And then you say, I don't know. And you act humble. Right. You can never act like you know, or you'll be crucified that day. You have to just act like the lovable Gilligan guy. But the truth is, making change within an organism, the white blood cells come for you, right? So the bigger we get you, the faster we get you, the more virulent we get you, the longer you can survive. And I hate to turn you into a disease.
Thank you. Yes, I appreciate that.
We got to get you strong, because the organism will stomp you. If we can't find Maker is one of those exceptions. People seem to be able to let Maker be Maker. Now, an entrepreneurial class, I think you could do that too. In some schools, it'd have to be after school, or it'd be a threat to the business class. Right? So how do you build those parallel systems that don't kill one another and actually see each other as helpful? That's where I live most days, just trying to find a safe place to do innovation within systems that are a little afraid of innovation.
Yeah. Sure. I would say that's like 95% of the systems. Yeah. That's a lot of schools. That's a lot of. It's not just schools. I've had the opportunity to visit lots of startups. And some small startups to 5 or 10 people, to 50 or 100. And it's interesting. That's the first thing they have to get past, is exactly what we're talking about, because they can attack one another, and that's how most startups fail. It's just from the inside, and that's what's been happening in the last 2 decades in education. We're failing from the inside, because I always say we get these young teachers in, and here we kind of have this thing of, hey, we want you to make a name for yourself. Make a name for yourself. Do whatever you got to do. Make a name for a good name, not the bad way.
Yes, there's 2 ways to do that.
Yes, that's right.
But and I think that's the hard part, is we always are beating our heads to not the old school of tech. Lock everything down. Don't let them go anywhere except these places. We're not that way anymore. I want you to go, hey, there's a door. I'm going to stick my head into it and walk through it and see what's going on. But you have so many folks that are just, don't walk in that door. Don't you dare walk through that door. Over here in the English department, we only use this door right here. That seems to be one of our biggest problems that we have for us. Yep. And that's probably what you're seeing. Like you said, I'm sure that's what keeps you awake at night.
We seem to now, as a board member, I've witnessed change in my district, and I got some ideas about how to get people to buy into change. But what becomes clear is, and I ask schools this question: is your school global or snow global? Now let me qualify that. So if you're really great this year, you made AYP, look at your test scores, and we tend to fall in love with exactly that, and we build a globe around it, and so it's protected, and then it sits on a shelf and gets old. The schools that I find that are farthest behind were farthest ahead 10 years ago. And they build a snow globe. So those are the kind of questions you want people to ask. You want to say, the new norm is change. When you fall in love with that and you get okay with that, we're on the right course. For instance, my district is an Apple Distinguished program. We were very proud of that. We wanted the community to be proud of that. But don't marry that forever. We're dating that. We're not marrying it because we have other fish to fry. We want to do things with Chrome. We want to do things with other devices. We want to be device agnostic in a few years. Bring your own device. If we marry and make a snow globe around iPads, then we're a one-trick pony, and we don't change. That's the biggest thing that scares me, is that sometimes our biggest moments of innovation can be the nail in our coffin if we get too proud of it. We, in this profession, are prone to laminating things. And once we laminate them, they last 20 years. We got to throw away the laminator, and build a new model. I think if one way you could say this is we got to move away from whose life is it anyway, which is a wonderful romantic script, to whose line is it anyway, which is an ever-changing show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And while the purists liked whose life is it anyway because they had a part in the play, the kids didn't have a part. They were student 1, student 2, student 3, janitor 1, scary guy from another country. Whatever we did back then. But now, how do we change all of that? Mm-hmm. How do we do that? And so I don't know about you guys, but I'm always looking for those schools that are really doing what they say. And I could tell you on one hand the ones I found that I think are the best in the world. And I want to start collecting these. And look, I don't want to get competitive. We do that. We're as good as they are. We do that. It started with mascots in sports. We're going to beat them tonight. Hey, beat them all the way. Whatever we do there, we got to stop doing that and start partnering with other schools. Yes. Not put competition in between us and learning from other people. Okay, I went on for a long time there. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
No, that is phenomenal. I mean, that is exactly the right course. That's the path we're hoping anyway to help our schools, get on. And I don't know. It sometimes it seems very overwhelming, and especially from, frankly, you've got. Generally speaking, we are regarded as 3 tech guys.
Yes.
What do you guys know about education? What do you guys know about Now, okay, so one of us here actually was a certified teacher, but so I think that also comes into play. But I think you have to kind of grasp on to whatever those little victories are, those little pat on the back. I do love the whole lamination thing. That is
I'll be stealing
so
that one.
dead on. But I even look at something that Ben, your son, posted the other day about, and I can't remember the whole thing, but the gist of it was that essentially changing things on a global scale is next to impossible. Right, and it was, and I mean, I could tell it looked like he was struggling with some things. I mean, he had just been overseas, saw some rough stuff over there, and part of his open world project, and had come back and was kind of contemplating things, and I just said, yeah, but look what you're doing with open world. You may not realize that, you are affecting that change in your way, in that one currently focused place. But you're helping make that change there, and I think that's part of the problem we run into in a school environment, or if we take it out globally. But even in a school environment, I think that's one of the things we run into is the problem seems so huge and insurmountable, and change is such a big, scary, nasty 4-letter word. And so how am I supposed to make change? How can I make change? Or I can't make change because I'm just this one little person. I'm not gonna. But the truth is, if we do one, you can do one little thing, and it can make all the difference in the world. I watched your TED Talk that you did with the students that you had posted. I think you posted it yesterday, maybe. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that stuck out that goes right along with this, especially when you're dealing with students, was how you had the one teacher who almost put their arm around you. But then you had the other teacher who did.
Yeah.
And it's that one little thing, that one little change that impacted you, impacted your world, ultimately impacted her world.
Yeah. I like superhero comics, and I like watching the movies that come from those things. And there's always that moment when a regular person becomes a superhero because of some intervening variable. And I think I know this has something to do with what you just said. You know that model where they say the guy was throwing starfish back in the ocean, and there were thousands on the beach, and the guy said, "What difference does it make?" And he said, "It made a difference to that one."
Yes.
Well, we're in a place where we can help a starfish, but we can teach the starfish how to help other starfish, and we really can do this by orders of magnitude. With social media like Twitter, the things we can do, Periscope, I'm in love with Periscope, learning a lot fast. Are you guys using Periscope?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Dabbling a little bit, but
I watch a lot of stuff on Periscope.
It's extremely distracting when you're broadcasting and getting the kinds of comments you can get from the open world. It can throw you off a little bit. So I'm trying to learn the ins and outs of how to broadcast without letting the trolls knock me off center. It's like teaching a really tough, rowdy high school class, probably. But anyway, as we look at this, David, you said, we talked and now you're doing this. Okay, that starfish is out there helping other starfish, and it just keeps getting bigger. I'm a cockeyed optimist, but I believe in the movement. And movement just implies that. Movement, right? One step. But long as there's movement, there's something to be optimistic about. It's when people cross their arms and say no that worries me.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Well, and that's one of the expressions that I use very frequently, probably to a fault to those that I throw it at often, is anytime, or not anytime, most of the time, when I'm called to help somebody solve a problem, I go in with the idea, with at least my goal is not to solve their problem, but to help them solve the problem. And what I tell them is, I would much rather teach you to fish than fish for you. Right. And if ultimately, I did some outside consulting work for a company once, and I taught their kind of their person who was kind of the de facto tech person. She was learning things and trying to catch up to speed and all that kind of stuff. And so I was teaching her more and more. And she said, "But doesn't this put you out of a job? I'm not going to need you if I know." And I said, "Yeah, but so what? Yeah. I would much rather you know how to do this. I would much rather teach you to fish than to fish for you." I said, because now you can turn around and you can either help somebody by fishing for them if the need be, or better yet, now and you can teach someone else how to fish that particular pond. I mean,
and people fear that empowering people will take away whatever you had. And in my experience and yours, David, they want new things once they learn how to do those first level things. Then you get a chance to come in and do something that matters and teach them something new. I've never found that it puts you out of a job to empower people. The opposite is true.
Yes.
But I think some people are afraid of that. If I'm not the expert in the room, then I don't have a role to play.
Right.
And I understand that fear. I can understand, but we're living in different times now. I think it's much more exciting than it ever was before. But I think that's a mindset that you have to grow and embrace,
Well,
so tell me.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, the young Jedi in the cool hat over there on the right. I haven't
Greg,
heard
who
much
hasn't
from
said
him.
3 words.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. What's popping into your mind? Because there are generational differences in the way we approach all of these questions. Are there any things that are popping into your mind that are making you think, yeah, but, or what about, or what isn't being talked about here that should be?
The main thing that I'm the guy who's usually down in the basement who's concerned with making things work. And all you guys are very big picture thinkers where you think of, okay, these are the big concepts. I'm more concerned with, okay, what's step 1? What's step 2? How do we get to where you're talking about? What in your mind is like, okay, what's the first step to achieve in your mind your goal of this idea where we're all of our teachers and all of our administrators are open to being wrong and open to how do we even begin that process?
Let's paint a picture, because a lot of times I think you have to see yourself there to start. So if you're working with a faculty, you've got all of that diversity and you've got all that diversity of experience. So that's hard, right? An administrator's job and an educational leader's job is as challenging as it's ever been, while the upside is exciting. So let's create a circumstance where we can bend the rules and no one is afraid of being wrong. No one is afraid of being called out. That's why I name things crazy things like digital dumpster diving. But in that day, and you're invited, and a lot of times the yous of this world are not invited to the PD that I'm leading. So how in the world is the guy who's going to make it work not invited to that? And not only that, but you don't even know why they want things. All you know is that you've been told that if anyone sees boobies, you're fired. So no one has changed the rules for you. Right. So we got to invite you to the conversation. And I think if we were all sitting there and said, guys, we're on an island, and every day new tools wash up on the beach that change the way things work on this island, right? So today, Periscope washed up. So I need everyone to look at it before we play with it. You look at it and make sure it's not a bomb. You look at it and make sure no one gets fired. You look at it for all the things it can do and bring to the classroom. Once we decide how to tame that tool, it's part of our island, and something else comes tomorrow washing up on the shore. And so we have a procedure, but you're always invited to that, because if we're not inviting the guy that makes it work, opens the ports, makes the exceptions, if that guy isn't also invited to go out and find 10 acceptable use policies for that tool, which are out there if you're on Twitter and connected, I'm not as brave as I seem. I go out there and look for other people's experience because I don't want to step in everything they stepped in. Yeah. We can do that now. Yes. So I want to make sure my IT team is as connected as anyone in the district. I want them to say, wait a minute, we can do that. It's not illegal. Actually, they've been using it in Tampa, Florida for the last 10 years. Under these conditions, we can use that. I want him to say that. Right. Not that he doesn't know it all and says, well, it's kind of risky. We'll lose our E-rate money going all the way back because HIPAA, SIPA, DARPA, and COPPA, a whole bunch of other scary acronyms, and suddenly the whole thing slams shut. I instead want to take you to the big conference so you know why people are asking for this. You know how they can actually do it. I'll pay you double, but I've got to keep you there. I can't let you get into a snow globe yourself. And often right. IT guys, they don't mean to, but they get overworked with level 1, level 2 tech support, and they can't ever get to this place I'm talking about.
Or they or they get so isolated in a dark basement somewhere that they never see the real world, and so all they see is the failures and the problems and this, that, and the other.
If I had saying that I isolate you in a basement?
Only in the best way possible.
He's down there going. He's going down there. It's my stapler. It's my stapler.
No, I come in and a laser lasers off my left eyebrow.
I've seen this. If I've seen it once, I've seen it 1,000 times. The IT person sometimes becomes a dragon in a lair, and they're blamed for everything because people manifest their fears of change, and they give it to the lightning rod. And the lightning rod is the person who's perceived as knowing the most about, you're causing this problem. This thing happened. Let's burn the castle. They don't know why, but people do this. And so I think you got to get you into the daylight right beside those practitioners so that you totally get it. You may have an idea of how to do something so simply that we saved $10,000 on that stupid software we almost bought, because now you know what we're trying to do. Not exactly what we're doing, but what we're trying to do. You know why. See, how got easy. Heck, most of us can do how. Why is still important, and I don't think they give you the why very often.
Yeah, that does happen quite a bit. Not necessarily in my case, because
not on purpose.
I have Jeff on my side to handle that particular role, but in a lot of places that we see in a lot of different districts, that's exactly what happens.
I think we got to take the IT and demystify IT. Get away. Remember how we started? We called them things like webmaster. We implied there was a priesthood of tech, and that if you ask me right, I may give you a button on the website, but you got to tell me why. And that cast IT people in the role of this arrogant expert, and now that we're end user. I think we got to recast them. We got to get them out there and make them into reluctant rock stars so that they say, that's a person down there. That could be my son. It'd be nicer to you. I don't know where they put their frustrations and fears. I mean, we got to find a box to put all that in, because it's going to happen. People naturally get mad. They attack the wrong thing. You know why? They're up to their armpits in kids, and they're up to their armpits in pressure. I don't
Everybody is
freaked out. How do we change the tone and the culture at the MASH hospital so we save more patients? Because getting more scared isn't the answer.
Right. Right. And that's the hard part, is the how do we do that? How do we make that change?
So I'm not trying to put a kibosh on this thing, but we're running at 58 minutes, and we usually go an hour. But we're going to go over, and we don't care. But the one thing I want to ask you is, we like to feature a song from an artist on the web. every week. That's just the musician in me. I like to help out folks. Do you
Cool.
mind if we play I Need My Teachers to Learn?
No, which one are you going to do? The remake
off
or
of-
the original?
This is the one off iTunes. I think it's the original one.
Cool. If it's just me and a guitar and sounds pretty bad, that's the original.
Yeah, but you know what's funny is
it sounded great.
that's actually my favorite version. I mean, it really is. I like the original version that is the more ballad.
Yeah.
Now, I will say I do like the I do like the up-tempo kind of remixed rock version, but to me, the ballad version is just, I don't know, there's something very poignant
Someday
about it,
we'll do a show. I'll bring my upright, plug into my iPad, and we'll try to do something live. That would be so much fun.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Okay,
So you're listening to radio.edutechguys.com. We've been talking with Kevin Honeycutt, and now we're going to go to our featured artist of the day, who is Kevin Honeycutt. We're going to listen to I Need My Teachers to Learn. So sit back and relax. It's about 3 minutes. It's a great song. Listen to the words. I think it'll mean a lot to most of you listening.
In the 27th row of her college class, she was working real hard, trying to pass. She studied all night for the test she took, but she couldn't use the notes on her own MacBook. He told him that note cards were the things they needed, and he wouldn't change his mind, though she begged and pleaded. The dark red F was no surprise as the tears formed in her eyes. She said, kids are changing, any fool can tell, and the ways that you teach them have to change as well. You might not like it 'cause we grow up fast, but prepare us for the future and not your past. There's not 1 minute to burn. I need my teachers to learn. In detention hall, there's a quiet young man with his head hung low, phone in his hand. He's asking his dad to feed his dog, 'cause he tried to post a story on his own blog. He was hoping that people would read his words, 'cause an audience of one seemed a bit absurd. Whatever happened to compromise? He said the school should realize. Kids are changing, any fool can tell, and the ways that you're teaching have to change as well. You might not like it 'cause they grow up fast, but prepare them for the future, not your past. There's not 1 minute to burn. They need their teachers to learn. In a 3rd grade room in a tiny town, there's a blue-eyed girl who's feeling down. She tried to bring her daddy to show and tell that he was gonna Skype them and wish them well. She showed him all the camera on her mom's netbook, but they wouldn't let her do it on a school network. The man in camo never called. He was blocked by a firewall. Things are changing, any fool can tell, and the ways that you're teaching have to change as well. You might not like it 'cause they grow up fast, but prepare them for the future and not your past. There's not 1 minute to burn. They need their teachers to learn. They need their teachers to learn.
Hey, you're listening to Kevin Honeycutt there on radio.edutechguys.com. Great tune. I Need My Teachers to Learn. You can find that on iTunes. You can also look on YouTube. There's tons of copies of that on YouTube. You can also visit Kevin's website, Kevin Honeycutt, KevinHoneycutt.com.
Org.
Sorry. I think .com goes the same place, doesn't it?
It does.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, it's so .com or .org. Also, catch him on Twitter at Kevin Honeycutt, and he's on Facebook. So you can find him anywhere on the web. It's AI. He has transcended into that.
The singularity has occurred. And
But
just
we're
call it
back.
Kevin
That was a
Honeycutt.
great tune. Kevin, tell us about that song.
I wrote that because I was frustrated. I was visiting schools and trying to open up YouTube and trying to open up Skype and get schools to look at all the opportunities they had to learn in other ways. And most places I was going, I couldn't get Skype open. They wouldn't open up that port. And there was a perceived, fear of vulnerability, all kinds of things. It didn't matter. At the end of the day, I couldn't do the things I needed to do, and I couldn't show teachers the resources. And so I wrote that to try to almost a guilt trip of sorts to say, don't be the guy that let the little girl not talk to her father. It hit their heartstrings, and it made them think again. So I put that out, and it went semi-viral. And I thought, cool, I can use music to get people to think big thoughts. Now, all of those songs on iTunes, the money that I make from any of that, which is about $5 a year, goes to my son's Open World project. So I'm not like making personal money from any of that. I just give whatever I can to help. So I hope I answered the question somewhere in there.
Yeah. So awesome. Tell us a little more about Open World project.
Ben, my son Ben, as a senior, was challenged to do what they called a legacy project, and all the kids in his high school have this challenge. Now, that can mean lots of things. It can mean raise money and buy a trophy case. It can mean raise money and buy a bench with your name on it. So it didn't really necessarily say go make the world better, but Ben's interpretation was, if I'm doing this, I want to make a difference somewhere. So he asked me if I knew any teachers that were in need. And because we're a teaching family, and I introduced him to Govinda Prasad Panthi, who was teaching in a small, like adobe brick school in Bageshwar, Nepal. And so Ben reached out to him, and I said, Ben, don't waste this man's time. This guy's got to walk to an internet cafe and spend his own money to get online. So if you can't help him, don't string him along. So he looked at that. And the first thing he realized is that the way Govinda was communicating to people didn't exactly meet the way the West hears things. He would say, help our school, which in our mind sounds like a charlatan or someone trying to get over. We've all had that email from the African prince wanting to put his millions of dollars in our account. So we've been trained. Oh my gosh. So we've been trained not to trust. And so what Ben was able to do was teach Govinda how to leverage social media, how to find his voice to speak to teachers and to speak to people in America. And it was years of fundraising and leveraging social media to do the smallest things. David, you were talking about those small things that we do. The small thing was first buying him 2 computers and internet connectivity, and then that kept growing. What happened is Ben couldn't stop. He didn't see an end to his responsibility here. So when he went off to KU, he officially started this Open World Cause Foundation, and other kids joined, and Connor came in, and these other kids have jumped in from the sides, and now it was 5 kids who went to Nepal. So as a kind of a capstone, this summer they did a separate fundraiser and raised money and went to Nepal, put boots on the ground for nearly a month, because their thought is that you can hurt people with your help if you don't understand them. You have to understand how to appropriately help people, and that means taking a little longer than a Google search and throwing money at someone and feeling good about yourself. That's the Western drive-by help model. The real model is, how do I really help these people? What do they really need? If you buy them a 3D printer and they don't have electricity, did you help them? Right. So you have to understand their grid is only online so many hours a day. The first thing you do is get them a solar panel and the capacity to have electricity a little bit longer. It's not as sexy, sorry. The first thing to do is to make sure they all have clean water. So one of Ben's friends, an underclassman at the time, started Project Purist, and they went over there and brought water filters so that every family has a filter, and they pour their water into a big bucket. When it comes out, it's clean and they don't get diseases. That's number one. Number two is do something cool and sexy. Everyone wants to do that first, and I think that's arrogant. The first thing you find out. And so these kids actually did their research, and the next school is a school in Africa that they're going to help, and they're going to keep going. But in every case, they're going to try their best to learn what the reality is in these places.
That is awesome.
How do you really help them? How do you purchase land in that country? What are the rules? How do you send something over there? For instance, if you send $1,000 piece of technology to Nepal, it's probably never going to leave customs, because they have exorbitant taxes on anything that's expensive. So it might cost Govinda $3,000 to get it out of customs. So you just hurt him because he's probably going to get in trouble for leaving it there, and he doesn't have the money to get it out, but you didn't study. How do I really help him? The best thing to do is to raise money and let him go to Kathmandu where he can get the lowest price. They still have access to technology. It doesn't have to come from us.
Sure.
All right, so that's a learning thing that you have to learn about. Now, that's that country. I wonder how other countries work.
Yeah.
Right? So this takes time. Like he said, it's messy. To help people on a world level, you've got to stop long enough to study the world,
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, the cool thing is that he's happy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's fulfilled.
Yeah.
I'm so glad when students or kids follow their dreams and make a life that they can live with. That they can wake up every day and go, great, where am I going today with my backpack? And that's all I need. My backpack and my shoes, and let's go do this. That's awesome to me.
Yeah. I think if, at his age, if I'd have done anything like that, I mean, what was I doing at his age? I was listening to AC/DC, drinking Dr. Pepper, and eating white powdered donuts. That was my life. I look at these kids. This generation of kids seems to be very prone to activism. And we have this chance to give them the tools and mentor them to really take that as far as they want to take it. Yeah. Really. I mean, it starts with a class project in kindergarten where you raised money and bought a goat for a family in Uganda, and they have, new things they can do because you did one fundraiser. But I want to start them young, thinking of more than their food and their presents and their possessions. You know what I mean? This world can be a very selfish place if we don't sort of anoint people to think outside themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and I think I think a lot of really as a whole, this young generation gets a bad rap for being that kind of selfish, self-centered, give me all these gadgets. But I think really, and I look at my daughter, and look at some of the stuff that she says, listen to some of the things that she says, and she's in the process of trying to kind of discover her open world project. They want to be involved. They want to do something, and I think part of the problem is that a lot of the older generation, that's not really that's not our mindset. So we have a hard time helping them do something, right?
Right. Yeah. The only thing, if we put ourselves in the role of letting them teach us, we can do that. I think it's hard to believe sometimes that there's this generation of kids who actually really care about doing something outside themselves that doesn't maybe give them a direct payback. And that's why this entrepreneur thing we were talking about, social entrepreneurialism, I think is a beautiful thing. I don't think it has to be one thing or another. I think it can be both and. Maybe they have a business that gives them the capacity to do the social good. One thing doesn't annihilate the other. They can live beside each other.
Sure,
I think
absolutely.
that we could start. The biggest thing I think is that we got to take kids' digital time and give them some challenges, right? That they can do. I call it digital placeholder behavior. Things they do that will help them later. They can bank goodwill. They can bank scholarship opportunities. They can bank perceived brand value on their name. All of those things. So having a new baby that's 3.5 months old has got my brain thinking in new ways. What do I need to do to get him ready? Do I need to buy his name? .com.org.
Right.
Yes, you
Do
do.
I need to give him an account on every social network just as a placeholder? He may never use it, but it'd be smart if I got that for him so he'd have those options.
Right.
But this is a new way to think, especially he's brand new. There's going to be so much that happens that I don't understand. How do I clear the path for him so he can be amazing? And I think that's a way all teachers should be thinking all the time.
I've been very lucky. This guy, my own digital ninja, has changed.
For those of you listening on the radio, he's pointing to Greg.
Yeah, sorry, I was pointing at Greg. Not David.
No.
I'm
Ouch.
No, but Greg changed my digital presence, my digital mindset of how I looked at the web and how I looked at things, because I became the tech coordinator here in '97 while I was still a band director. And that was when Microsoft ruled the world, and we locked everything down, and SIPA was not even heard of yet, but this guy, if I walk into his office and I say, hey, I want to do this with unicorns and butterflies, and I want ones and zeros to fill the room.
Do you want monarchs? Do you want, I mean,
and
like,
that's
give me
the thing that I get. It's just like, yeah, man, let's make it happen. We're going to find a way. We're going to use iBeacons and NFC tags, and we're going to use Raspberry Pi with a camera attached to it. It's that's what's happened to me and my daughters. I'm wide open to anything at this point. Mm-hmm. Maybe I shouldn't be. I am not censoring anything. Love it. So that's the best thing that's happened with me hiring. And he's not that young of a guy. He's like an old 28, 29.
20, just 27.
27.
Just 27.
See, I'm looking track of how old. So, I missed your birthday. No, but I think it's interesting you say about buying your son's name. Yeah, you got to do that. Because I was coming down the stairs last night with my iPad watching a video of something, and I thought, wow, I remember when the best TV that I remember seeing was a black and white TV from TG&Y that was, 3 inches by. I was like, where have we come in my lifetime? Mm-hmm. And what are my girls going to see? And what's your son going to see and do and be a part of? That boggles my mind every day. Maybe I need to get out of education and go on the road. That's what I need to do.
I think he's frozen. Did we lose?
I think we might have. Nope.
Oh.
I'm back.
Okay.
There you go.
Last thing I heard was, "What are my girls gonna see?" And I know that feeling.
Yeah.
You're vulnerable when you open yourself up and try new things, but I think you're less vulnerable than if you don't try new things. I think to be illiterate these days is more dangerous than taking a few risks. But here's the other thing I like to tell people is if you're going to open things up, the new filter should be curricular, and we should be building that filter that's taught, right? Because it's portable and it goes with them where they go. And it starts with doing great things instead of just doing random things. And the other is to start thinking about your reputation. And it's hard to teach kids this because it takes a while in life to realize that your reputation is more important than you realized. Mm-hmm. So when you start doing projects to help other people and you realize that a loss in your reputation is a loss to the people you're trying to help, then by extension, it's extrinsic, but it's a way to sort of simulate self-concern until you get self-concern. That's what the last thing to arrive in the human, prefrontal cortex is realizing I'm causing these problems. I need to not do that anymore. So one of the things we have. I was going to say, yeah. So I think projects can be kids, extrinsic self-concern until they get an intrinsic one.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so, a couple last questions. Where can we find you? Where can the listeners find you this rest of this year? You got some big conferences coming up before.
Oh my gosh, do I have a picture somewhere? I'm all over the Midwest. I tend to be a Midwest phenomenon. I do some California and some New York, but I do a lot of Minnesota, the Dakotas. I'll be in Arkansas near Hot Springs coming up. I was just looking at that date because, David, we got to hang out, man.
Well, I want to go to I didn't realize you were coming to town, meaning Arkansas.
Yes, exactly. Country measurement of time.
I have an outside of outside of Hot Springs. Let me see what the event is. In the morning, high school principals. Don't have many details right now. Little Rock is closest. I have a keynote at a high school principals conference. I'll get you more details, or Brenda can get you more details too.
Yeah,
I'll post her contact.
I'm assuming it's also on your website where you are and where you're going.
Kind of, but it's really hard to keep that current, and so I almost need to pull it down because it's not fresh. I wish there was an easy way I could just. Well, you guys will have to help me share my calendar so everyone can see it without having access to the whole calendar.
Right. Let's schedule Kevin to go.
That's right.
Oh.
I've puzzled over that for a while, but yeah, I need to have a better. I know there's an easy way I can do that. I just need to ask a fifth grader to help me.
That's exactly. Well, so it's funny though. You say you're mostly, Midwest, and you do a little California, a little, New York, but you also go to New Zealand pretty regularly. It's just you travel the world. I don't want listeners to, you're very. I would say you are very humble. For what you do and for the impact that you have. I mean,
you're nice to say that. You know, the
You
fun
are.
part about going to other countries is that you get exposed to all those dialects and all those different realities. And you know me, I'll pick up dialects wherever I go, right? So, last time I was on Groot Island in Northern Territory, Australia, Groot Island, Grooto. One of the guys said to me, Kevin, I'm Kevin over there. and they'll say, how you going, David? It means how you doing, right? How you going? Anyway, how you going, Kevin? Hey, point of information, don't go near the water. And I said, why? He said, a croc took a man last week.
Oh my God.
And he said it like he took him to the library or something. He took a man, right? So I could be the next man. And everything there's conspiring to try to kill you, and I'm trying to be cool, but you know, frankly, I'm sweating. I got half crescent boob rings. It's so hot. So, you know, I've given up the idea of being cool. But what's fun is hearing all these different dialects and these different philosophies of education. And I find New Zealand and I find Australia to be pretty amazing places for people to think big thoughts. And very much like the Midwest. I think in the Midwest of the United States, I think we're very practical. If something works, we'll try it. You know, and I like that mindset. I think if you have that mindset, you can do almost anything. And so I think I could take a lot of people from the Midwest right to Australia, and they would fit right in. Just watch out for the crocs and the box jellyfish and the dingoes.
The dingoes.
And Tommy kangaroo down, mate. You know, it's interesting because here in the South, we're all traditional. We do everything just like we did it 65 years ago. Nah, it seems like that's the difference between there.
Yeah.
Hey, if you're listening, the Angels of My Education, that's the TEDx talk for TED Talk Kids. Is that right? And that one's out there on Twitter. We just posted the link. And you can catch Kevin's stuff at kevinhoneycutt.org or .com. And follow him on Twitter at Kevin Honeycutt, KevinHoneycutt. Want to say thank you, Kevin, for being here today.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you very much. This has been awesome.
Yes.
It's been a lot of fun, and appreciate you taking time out of your crazy schedule, and more importantly, taking. I don't know how Michelle let you get away this long from Gibson, but
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Well, hopefully
So
soon I
next
get to
time
meet you. We get to meet up live. We'll bring Greg, and I'll bring my axe, and we'll definitely have to jam together.
Hey, tell Brenda, David, you're in touch with her. Tell her that when I come down to Hot Springs, that we got to set something up so we can do that.
yeah, that'll be
Periscope
that'll be
the whole
great.
thing. That'd
Okay.
be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do some kind of after hours shindig.
There you go.
That'll be
Yeah.
cool.
I'm honored that you guys had me on. Thank you. I want to do this again sometime.
Hey, absolutely. And we
Awesome.
definitely appreciate, like I said, you taking time out to come on and visit with us and share your thoughts. And definitely give Gibson a peck on the cheek for me. I can't wait to meet
Will
the
do.
little guy in person. That's awesome.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be fun.
Thanks, Kevin.
Take care, guys.
You're listening.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Bye.
You're listening to radio.edutechguys.com. I've had a great day here with Kevin Honeycutt. Wonderful interview. Got to learn a lot of great stuff about him, about his stance on a lot of good stuff that we're all dealing with, because it's education, baby. I tell you what, we're going to head out of here. It's been a great show. I'm Jeff Madlock.
I'm Greg Moore.
And I'm David Henderson. We want to thank Southwest Arkansas Education Cooperative and Hope Public letting us do this each week. And we will see you next week on the radio. You've been listening to EduTech Guys Radio, radio.edutechguys.com.
The opinions expressed on the site and this program are those of participants and not intended to and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of any specific educational entity, sponsor, company, state, or government agency.